What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield, rounding out week one in college football. And Dad chooses to start the show with violence right away. Everyone working on this show has done a really great job this week. It's been a ton of fun being out in Boston, getting to sort of relaunch what had been the GoJo show, merge it into all this stuff. We've had so many great people working hard, and they do this fun open for us that you can see. Nice, when you download, subscribe, rate, review, 5-star rating, or watch us live here, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday on the DraftKings YouTube channel, DraftKingsNetwork.com, or Samsung TV Plus. And they put together this little montage at the beginning of pictures of me and Dad in our younger years, me in high school, and a baby picture. And my dad leans over to me right before the start of the show, goes, "Man, you had a really fat face as a kid."
I think you said chunky.
I said chunky and full, not fat. Okay?
All right, what does chunky and full mean?
I mean, chunky's cute. Like, babies are chunky. It's like, it's cute.
I wasn't fat shaming you.
It was malicious intent.
We like our babies chunky.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
like you want a chunky baby.
I meant it in the most positive way.
Yeah.
I wanted you to understand and acknowledge, where do you think that came from?
Donuts?
I mean, genetics? Have you seen the picture of you? My earliest memory of you is a picture of you jamming your hand into a sheet cake at 330 pounds.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
People say, "Oh, you look so much better today," and they're trying to be nice to say what I did look like, and I say when I was big boned, and I always tell my wife, I said, "Why didn't you tell me I was fat?" And she's like, "Well, I see you every day," I said, that's not an excuse. Tell me I need to lose.
It snuck up on me.
Yeah. It snuck up on me over years. Finished playing at 300. Next thing I know, I'm 315 and look like a vanilla milkshake. I mean, fill me in on this. Let me know.
Yeah, Mom's got this blind spot for the men in her life being chubby, because I always look back now and it's the same deal. I was a chubby kid.
Well, you were the kid that wore the T-shirt going into the pool.
In the pool.
Which your brother Jake always gets on you about, and your mother gets so mad.
I get on me about because I was a chubby kid, and now I am a less chubby adult. But my mom, refuses to accept the idea that I was a fat kid, especially because she was making us monkey bread before school every day.
Well, that's the thing. When you're a kid, it's not like you're planning your menu. Like, you're like, today I'll have this for lunch, mother. Like, when you're grown up, you just
So Jesse is now blaming your mother.
No.
It's a clear shot.
To be clear, it was a different time. Our parents we did not know what we know now.
Coming from the woman who fed us all donuts this morning.
What did you do?
Yeah, where is the woman who fed us all donuts this morning?
Box of donuts today.
Who is she?
It was me.
Yeah.
Hi.
Wow.
I'm the problem. It's me.
Mike, just know I meant it with nothing but love in my heart.
Yeah.
Well, I mean this. We are brought to you by Wrangler. Made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GOJO15. We got a lot to get to. It is the full week one of college football coming up this weekend. We're going to have Jordan Travis, the quarterback of the Florida State Seminoles, who's getting ready to probably play in the biggest game of this opening weekend as Florida State takes on LSU in a rematch of a barn burner from last year. Two teams with big-time college football playoff expectations. Excited to look at the full weekend slate. But, Dad, we kicked it off last night. We had college football left and right here. I'm looking around, and we knew the headliners that we're going to get to. Utah and Florida playing in a big rematch of last year's week one game. We had Minnesota. We had the Matt Rhule era getting started in Nebraska. We had an Arizona State game finish at like 4 in the morning Eastern because of a dust storm and lightning delay out there. It was chaos on night one.
Yeah, Trent Dilfer starting his head coaching job at UAB, running up the score, throwing bombs with 30 seconds to go. His quarterback went 38 of 41 in that game, throwing the ball all over the park, scored a passing touchdown with 4 seconds to go when they were up by like 100. So that was but he got his first win there. But there were the two marquee games yesterday for sure.
It felt so good having it on there and having the quad box going again, having a game on the TV and a game on the iPad and a game on the laptop. We felt at home last night, and we felt even more at home because, spoiler alert, if you were wondering coming into the 2023 season, hey, what's the deal with this Utah Utes team? Maybe you've dropped in for the first time on college football and you're not really sure what the MO has been for Kyle Whittingham's bunch out in Utah. They're going to try and beat you to death with hammers. And that's what they did again last night against Florida. The now two-time defending Pac-12 champions opened up at home, Dad, with a pretty dominant win over Florida. 24-11, the box score, Dad, is going to tell an interesting tale of this game for people that didn't watch this game. Because you look through, and Florida outgained Utah offensively in terms of total yardage. They led in time of possession, and they end up losing by 13 points because they could not get out of their own way. Dad, this is really the classic example of, did Utah, who was shorthanded in this game, no Cam Rising, no Brent Keithy.
8 starters out in this game.
8 starters from a team that won the Pac-12 last year in addition to some draft losses. Did they go out and win this game, or was this really Florida just shooting themselves in the foot over and over?
Yeah, I mean, Florida was 1 of 13 on third down. They had 9 penalties. They averaged 7 a game last year, which put them over 100, 101st, I think, ranking. So they're a penalized team. They had 9, as I said last night. Couldn't convert a third down. Partly, I think like anything else, it's somewhere in the middle. They made mistakes, but one thing about Utah, no matter whatever you talk about a Utah team every year, one thing they're going to do is, as Mike used the word hammer, is be that hammer on defense. Their defense is extremely tough, and they will bludgeon you, and that's exactly what they did to Florida last night. And then you come out of the game. Remember, Cam Rising, the starting quarterback, not playing in this game. He blew out his knee in the Rose Bowl last year. So what was it? Bryson Barnes, first play of the game, 70-yard touchdown, and it wasn't a 5-yard slant that Money Parks, love that name, by the way.
Yeah, no,
Money Parks took it out.
Time.
This was a flat-out bomb where the safety started reading the crossing route too much, less room over the top, and Barnes put it on the money, who finished it off for a 70-yard touchdown pass on play number 1. Barnes, again, the backup, had 159 yards passing, 150 in the first half, including that 7-yarder. So they just kind of were grinding out that game. He only threw the ball, I think, 18 times in this game, 12 of 18. They did it in an efficient way, and Florida shot themselves in the foot more than a few times.
Yeah, it was a sloppy game by both teams,
well,
right?
Because expected,
expected, but even for Utah, we talked about missing their quarterback. They would throw Nate Johnson in there, who was another one of their backup quarterbacks, younger guy, more of a dual threat, to try and really recapture that, because you saw, I think, the value of both quarterbacks that played for these teams in last year, right? A lot of people singing the praises of Anthony Richardson in hindsight, saying, man, what he was able to do with this team last year, given what we saw out of Florida constantly shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, in the first quarter and change alone, Dad, for Florida, you had 3 post-snap or pre-snap penalties on critical 3rd and short situations or 4th and short situations that directly killed drives. Like, you didn't have to work hard. It wasn't like having to wait to see which card comes next to the blackjack table when somebody makes the wrong move. You got to see right away that took points off the board for a team that, after weathering that early blow, Dad, seemed to level set a little bit.
Yeah.
Utah wasn't dominant on offense against them. They were 3 of 13 on third down in this game. They were a team operating without their starter in Cam Rising, who can do both. He can run and pass. You had to kind of use 2 guys to make one out of that Utah offense. And I looked at a Florida team that, when you watch down in and down out, didn't look as far off physically or competitively, but it was they just couldn't get out of their own way. Underscored by, late in that game, you had forced Utah, in the middle of that game, you had forced Utah to punt. And Florida backs up, receives the ball, we see the penalty blown. Florida gets flagged for a penalty I know a lot about.
Yes, you do.
In having 2 players on the same special team unit wearing the same number, which is something, Dad, and I heard Sam Acho and the guys on the halftime show talking about it. You go over the night before games. You go into the room and you've got these big meetings where you go through offense, defense, special teams, and you go through each special teams unit. And you would go through the sub-drill. So if a guy goes down, who's his backup, who goes in, and you've got all that stuff situated. Somewhere along the line, someone just flat out missed that you had 2 guys wearing the same uniform. Notre Dame had a player that had to change his uniform number the week of game 1 because they figured that out during the week. And now here, it bites Florida. They turn the ball back over because of that. Utah gets to retain the ball and score 7 points at a critical juncture in that game. I understand it's week 1, but, Dad, it was over and over and over again in a way that completely thwarted Florida's effort. That was the biggest problem for them in this game, bar none.
And that's what you look at now when they go over film. You certainly correct physical mistakes. Foot placement, hand placement. You got beat physically for this reason. But we both call games, and we both said this on air, and it's not rocket science. Coaches hate the procedure penalty, the mental penalty, worse than anything else. They'll take a physical penalty because you were out there kind of doing your thing, trying. But that false start where all of a sudden you ruin a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1, or put you in a situation now going back 5 yards and hurting your team there. Those are the ones that crush a coach and can crush a team. The mental errors, the mental penalties. And then for a team that's in the red zone 4 times and you come away with 10 points, these are all the things that the coaches will look at. 1 of 13 third down. Where's the problem? Some were procedure penalties, that caused that as well. But it is the mental things that get involved. And as far as a double number, listen, that starts with the coaches.
I was going to say, they got to look themselves in the mirror
without
on a staff that's got more support, like double the amount of support staff members that they do players.
While you expect everybody to know the rules, that's a tough one for the players. They're just excited to be out on the field. You're not going to get many players that say, wait a minute, that's too. You may have some that do that, but that one's going to fall on the coaches without question. So that's what happens in week 1. It's usually sloppy and you have things to correct, but it's the mental errors that really get a coach more than anything else.
And those mental errors, that's a direct reflection of the coaching staff more often than not. We're always looking on the outside looking in, right, for things that are indicative of coaching. Because you and I both know coaching is mostly what you see on every given day behind closed doors in the building. And so in games, it's clock management, and it's usually, hey, situational football and the discipline of your team. We ascribe pre-snap penalties especially to the discipline of a football team that's instilled time and time again. And for Billy Napier in this outfit, he's already, because this was a standalone game, because it's the first night of college football season, he's going to have a lot of people already sparking up the heat under that seat going into year 2 for him, because they've had a lot of big recruiting wins. But if you go out here, and Dad, part of me wants to cut them a little slack, because this is a Utah team that knows exactly who they are.
Right.
This is a Utah team playing at home in a night game in one of the most raucous environments of college football that people probably don't know as much about. So you've got all those factors in there. But, man, Utah was down 8 starters, too. They managed to make it work in a way that Florida just looked completely inept on.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say we may disagree on, a false start on a 3rd and 1, I'm not putting on the coaching staff.
Not once or twice, but when I'm saying over the course of a long season,
right,
when penalties like that are happening, focus penalties, that to me is indicative of, hey, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen, right? You're either not putting the right guys in there, you haven't instilled discipline enough along the team.
Yeah,
that generally tends to be how it goes.
I guess
if it's a pervasive problem.
If it happens with the same person a few times, but if he's not jumping, a illegal false start in practice, you're not going to expect it in the game. But if the same person is doing it over and over.
But if it's happening to your team over and
right,
over, if this is a problem that persists over the course of a season, I'm saying, again, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen.
That can be. This is week 1, so I'm certainly not, I'm going to put that on the players. At least in week 1 to say, listen, you got to hold your water. You got to know the count.
It's going to be very interesting now to watch the ripple effects of this for both of those teams. Utah looks exactly like a team that when Cam Rising comes back healthy and they get healthier across the board, should absolutely and could absolutely win the Pac-12 yet again. I still firmly believe that no one in the Pac-12 is going to be able to come out whole enough from the juggernaut end of October, November schedule that all these teams are going to go through. But this is a team full of adults who are sure of their identity under Kyle Whittingham, and that showed up night 1 of week 1 in this college football season. Unfortunately, the same can also be said for another team wearing red that played last night, Jesse.
Yeah, Nebraska lost a nail-biter to Minnesota on Thursday night. First game under coach Matt Rhule. Huskers could not overcome 4 turnovers, losing 13-10 on a last-minute field goal. This game kind of had everything here. It came down to the last minute. What was your guys' take on this? And, Huskers could not keep the energy from the volleyball day going.
Yeah.
It was not, the vibes were not right.
They strayed too far from Memorial Stadium. They lost their strength.
Like Notre Dame is a fencing school with 13 national titles. Nebraska is a volleyball school at this point. Listen, this is a game, now it was a 1-score game, so it's not like you feel comfortable. But Nebraska has the ball, right around midfield. They're running the ball. They're burning the clock. The only thing you can't do is turn the ball over. And the ball gets knocked out of the running back's hand. Minnesota recovers. They go down and score on, already in week 1, maybe one of the best touchdown catches.
Oh, my God.
The 13-yard touchdown pass to Daniel Jackson. There is no way when I saw that, I said, oh, he was out.
Dragging that back foot, the poise.
Ref steps in and says touchdown. I said, oh, that's getting overturned. And you see it in slow motion. It almost looked like, how did he do that, dragging the back foot when the front foot was just about on the ground, out of bounds in the end zone? That was fantastic. So still, at least, tie ball game, Nebraska with the ball, going down to try and get the winning score. Interception.
Yeah.
Turn it over again. And Minnesota gets himself in field goal range to kick one as I believe the clock runs out to get the win 13-10. And Nebraska and Matt Rhule sitting there stunned saying, we had this one. We're trying to burn clock at the end of the game. 2 turnovers later, they're 0-1.
Nebraska now 2-14 in one-score games since the start of the 2021 season. And we know that's a lot of Scott Frost stats. But, Dad, I guess the disheartening part if you're a Cornhuskers fan is there was a lot of improvement, especially defensively on this team.
Yeah.
Looked bigger, executed at a high level. Ethan Kaliak-Manis, who was getting the start taken over for Tanner Morgan, who had been there since the Bush administration in Minnesota, had some big moments like that throw. There were big throws mixed in there with freshman moments where he took sacks or took off to run in spots where maybe a veteran player wouldn't have done that. The Nebraska defense showed up more. Unfortunately, it was mistakes and finding a comical way to lose that brought them all the way back. Jeff Sims, the quarterback that was a transfer from Georgia Tech that got the start for them, 3 interceptions in this game, 4 turnovers overall, and really, again, just couldn't get out of their own way in a game that seemed allergic to the end zone for a large portion of it, which proves that Big Ten football is officially back.
So it seems like it's either in week 1, because normally early on defenses are ahead of offenses. So in week 1, you either get that high-scoring game, right, where all of a sudden the offenses are just kind of scoring at will, or a defensive game filled with some mistakes. And that was this game.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, 10-3 with 5 minutes to go before the fumble and the score happens.
The quarterback for Minnesota, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, attempted 44 passes in this game and did not crack 200 yards passing.
Yeah.
That is the offensive tour de force that we saw.
Yeah, there was no offense. So overall for Nebraska, they have 4 turnovers, 7 penalties in this one. So this was more of a defensive battle filled with some mistakes on the offensive side of the ball. But after all of that, I mean, Matt Rhule had to feel pretty good to say, okay, we can run, as you said, as a former lineman, even though there's 5-some minutes to go, it's still considered 4-minute offense. Control the ball, run the ball, keep the clock moving. That's what you got to do. Worst thing you can do is fumble. Give Minnesota credit on the fumble. Great job of getting an arm in and punching the ball out. But then, you got to play some defense. And still, that catch by Daniel Jackson was one in week 1 already. That is probably going to hold up for a while as the catch of the year. It was absolutely incredible. If you haven't seen it, you'll get plenty of chances to see it.
Yeah, full extension there. Looked like the Jumpman logo in the end zone. And that's going to be, I think these are both teams that are going to have interesting expectations. Minnesota's not one of the haves in the Big Ten as we look at them right now. They lost Mo Ibrahim, one of their school's all-time leading rushers from last year. We mentioned Tanner Morgan, while old, was a part of some really great offenses early in the Fleck era there. Defense going to be the calling card yet again for Nebraska. I do think it will get better, especially than what we saw last season. Now, it's also worth noting, Matt Rhule, who's known as this program jump starter, right? What he did at Temple, what he did at Baylor, year 1 wasn't the time that really took hold. So the record might not reflect it this year. This might be more like year 1 Dan Campbell for the Detroit Lions, where you're still in some of these close games, you're still losing, but you're looking for some of those signs, like we talked about on defense last night, of are things starting to change? I know there are a lot of Nebraska fans already a little uncertain about the offense coordinated by Marcus Satterfield and quarterback by Jeff Sims, but you're going to have to give these things time over the course of the year to see if there's any of those positive notes.
I do think it will get better. As you just mentioned, Matt Rhule has a history of doing that. But when you lose in a way, as you mentioned, 2-14 in one-score games since 2021, that's bringing up the past and saying, we're still doing things from the past. We need to break out of that. But I do agree it will be different with a new coach. We're going to talk about others as well. Deion Sanders getting ready to coach his first game at Colorado. Is this a new coach that can start to turn the program around? There's a lot of that.
It's one of the hardest things, and I went through it as a player on some bad teams, to see the ball go through the basket in a positive way. Coming up next, though, let's talk holdouts and a little bit of soft knocks from Hard Knocks next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We're just days away from the start of the 2023 NFL season. Here we go, baby. And the 49ers are still without Nick Bosa, who is holding out as he awaits a contract extension. And Kyle Shanahan admitted on Wednesday that the situation has become a bit worrisome. I mean, he could see Bosa maybe missing some time, but he was adamant that he would not be traded.
I thought it would come probably to this time, just looking at the history of those things. And I'm really hoping it gets done. I know they're working tirelessly at it. John, Hamp, Prague, I know their team is, but hopefully we can get him in here sooner than later.
Is there any way you can imagine this team not having him on the team, say, if this thing goes on into the regular season?
Yeah, I can imagine anything. Doesn't mean I like that picture. Of course not. You guys know how we feel about Nick, and we all know how good of a player he is. So hopefully we can come to terms soon and get him here as fast as possible.
There's no way that you guys would consider trading Nick?
No. Yeah. I mean, I haven't talked to many people about that, but I know how I feel pretty strongly.
I can imagine anything. Doesn't mean I like that. I thought that was hysterical.
Every once in a while, coaches in press conferences, because they're working on the fly here, come up with some of the most insane little quips that money can buy.
Yeah. I mean, that was incredible. Just like, well, I can imagine anything. You're like, well, I bet you can.
If you can believe it, you can achieve it.
Yeah.
There is
I'm Kyle Shanahan, and I approve this message.
no shot they would even think of trading of this guy. You know exactly what you have to do. You have to pay him, and we thought for a while now. So what is it? It's Aaron Donald at 31.7, I think, average annual. And then the next, I think, is Quinnen Williams at like 24 or 25. So there's a gap. Well, Bosa's going to be more than Aaron Donald, and should be, right? I mean, at this point, this is just how it works. We're going to talk about another one in that in a tight end in a bit with TJ Hockenson, because some people are always like, how can this person get paid more than that person? Well, it's just when your time comes up. And Nick Bosa has done enough. This dude in 4 years, now one of those years he only played 2 games.
Yeah.
The other 3 were full seasons. He has 43 sacks, let alone forgetting the sacks, the pressures, and the hits that he has as well. He should and will get more average per year than Aaron Donald. It's just the next step.
Well, he's also an edge rusher, right? Part of the conversation with Aaron Donald's always been he got paid, and he is at $31 million a year average in that metric because there's a number of ways to be the highest paid whatever.
Right.
Aaron Donald is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history at that number. And usually players and agents are looking for, and that's always kind of the battle, is how am I going to be able to sell to the outside world? My player is the highest quarterback ever, the highest paid player in NFL history. And I'm sure the charge here is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history for Nick Bosa, which to your point, especially at edge rusher, that's an even easier sell in most people's mind because that's been a glamour position for a long time. And even still in the world of football we have now, it's even more valuable because of the premium placed on quarterbacks. You draw a line and draw a string from the quarterback to all the positions that can most directly either protect or impact that guy, and that's where you follow the money going. Nick Bosa has been undeniably great and should be undeniably paid. His brother Joey, I believe, is a little over $100 million guaranteed, which is another number to keep in mind for the total numbers in this contract. But he is young, he has been extremely productive, and he is wildly important to a defense that has couple of main cogs that you absolutely need, right? Headlined by him and Fred Warner at the linebacker core as you've cycled through different coaches year after year on that side of the ball while they get head jobs. You got to keep those dudes because all the conversation we've had about quarterback has gotten bailed out because you have the best dude at probably 3 or 4 positions on your football team. He's one of them. Don't mess it up.
Yeah, this to me, it really is a no-brainer. But then again, I thought Jonathan Taylor getting a $12 to $14 million deal, which is a pittance compared to numbers like that, to keep him in Indianapolis paired with Anthony Richardson. But, it shows you probably why I'm not a GM. They're not listening to me. But to me, this is a no-brainer. It's just what number do you fall on and get to that makes it great for the player and certainly good for the team as well. That's what a negotiation is. Rarely do you go on one side and say, boy, he completely won and the other side completely lost. You want it to benefit both sides. To me, the more interesting one may be Chris Jones, who really may be out for a while, Mike, and where that goes, is that Aaron Donald money? Now you're talking same position,
and the general understanding in the D-tackle market had been for pretty much everybody, we're going to pay you a lot. We ain't going to pay you what we pay him. Money, and everyone's kind of understood that. And that seemed to be the understanding.
I'm sure that's the understanding except for everybody but Chris Jones. Right.
And even if I'm Kansas City, I'd be like, you're still not him.
Yeah, but
like, you're great, but nobody's him.
But it's like, what are you doing for me now? And he has been incredible right now. So he's got to be in that area, right? Where I think Bosa has passed it. I don't think, because Aaron Donald's even ahead of all the edge rushers as well. So you want to sit there and talk position specific. He's more than the edge rushers is Aaron Donald. And the edge rushers have normally been paid more than, though we're starting to see a little difference. Quentin Williams, what he's done from the Jets, again, doing stuff from the interior as well, of what their worth is when they put up those numbers.
And it's not just market leverage. We've talked about team leverage, looking at the rest of the Chiefs' defensive situation that almost solely hinges on Chris Jones being a difference maker. When you look at last year's team that weathered so much change on offense, defensively, when you've got a D tackle that has 15.5 sacks and finally gets his first postseason sack of his career, all those things, that's what helps propel you to the heights that they got to last year. So those paydays feel obvious. I don't feel like we probably knew this was coming, right? Generally, when you trade for a player who's coming up on a new contract, people seem to look and say, all right, this is kind of an inevitable situation where the extension's going to come. But TJ Hockenson, like you talked about, Dad, 4 years, $68.5 million, the highest paid tight end by average annual value. Travis Kelce now becomes the 4th highest paid tight end in professional football.
That doesn't seem real when you say that out loud.
It's a good reminder that good organizations, when they know they got something, tend to get the deal done right away. Dad, Hockenson last year between Detroit and his stops here now ended up with just under 1,000 yards receiving and about 900 yards receiving on the season, and is a really good tight end. I don't think anyone views him in the class of a George Kittle or a Travis Kelce, but like you said, in range and due for a payday with the leverage coming off that trade, and here we are.
Next in line. It's what it always is next in line. People can't believe it. People can't believe the numbers Daniel Jones got, right? But he was next in line, and he got a big payday, not the highest paid quarterback. But, you mentioned last year, and it was Kelce who was 3rd in the league with 110 receptions. Now, Hockenson was next in tight ends, I think, with 86 receptions. So he was
86 for 914 yards and 6 touchdowns.
And I'm a huge fan of his. And again, he is another one. But these are the 2 names you use for why the trade deadline is now becoming an important part in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey, far and away, one of the biggest reasons. Dude, left Carolina, gets traded to San Francisco, steps in a few days later, and is an immediate impact. TJ Hockenson was as well, going to Minnesota. So I get this. This is the business of sports, and especially in football. What we're covering, he is next. So while people will question, how does he get that much? Because he's next. And then when the next one comes up, who is putting up good numbers, they'll be the next.
I was going to say, next and you believe is going to be important still, because we know these paydays aren't for what you've done. It's also for what they think you're going to do.
Right.
And you look at this Minnesota offense that waved goodbye to Dalvin Cook this offseason, that needs to become more than one-dimensional of throw the ball to Justin Jefferson.
Adam Thielen gone as well to Carolina.
And so now you've got Jordan Addison, who you draft out of USC, who's expected to help early there. You've got Hockenson supposed to layer there. And you've got an offensive line with a bunch of young, very good parts. Brian O'Neill at right tackle. This offense needs to become more well-rounded overall, and they believe TJ Hockenson can be a big part of that. And so you've got him paid there for a Minnesota team that everyone, myself included, is looking at going prime for regression. You had the best record in one-score games in the NFL last year. You were a team that grossly overachieved and seemed to win in a lot of the margins. It's going to be on them now. Major change in defense with Brian Flores coming over on that side of the ball that we expect to pay dividends. But on offense, it's got to go out there and show it can be more than just one player.
And I'll also say, remember the tight end position. We talk about the running back position. The tight end position, it's not like this is a monster cap number either. What's his yearly average, like 14 mil or something like that? When we're talking about what quarterbacks make, what edge rushers make, what left tackles make, what cornerbacks make, tight ends are lower on they're more toward the running back average annual than toward the highest paid one. So while it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, as far as a cap number and average annual salary, it's not up there near the tops of the other positions.
And especially you mentioned, I think one of the things we've talked about a lot with running backs is what do you offer in terms of options? TJ Hockenson, one of those tight ends that can do everything on the field, gives you a lot of options. Coming up next, though, we got a lot of options as to who's going to coach Michigan for the first 3 weeks of the season. Let's spin the wheel and find out who's up first. GoJo and Golic and everyone just operating in fear here now. My mother blowing up group chats, trying to defend herself after we outed her for feeding us delicious sugary monkey bread.
You're the one
I
who
would
said
like
it.
to say, for the record,
Oh, man.
that she's an amazing mother, and I was not insinuating that she had anything to do
what a
with
suck up. Her
any
defense
of her
was
children's
'cause
body types.
Mike made it sound like
As round as they may be.
Mike made it sound like every morning she made monkey bread for the kids.
It was
before they went
delicious.
to
I
school.
loved it.
It is, but as she texts to us, I only did it when Jake was in high school as well and needed to gain weight. That I made that for him for breakfast. Yeah.
When I needed to gain weight, I would come home from football practice and I would eat the family size can of Chef Boyardee ravioli. Which has 8 days of your daily sodium intake in one can of that.
That worked well.
That's how you go ahead and beef this thing up.
Well, that's how you
yeah.
beat cramps too, right? Beat cramp
Yeah,
around the
exactly.
a lot of sodium in you.
That's part of a well-rounded diet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't
Check
worry,
the-
Jesse. You're just dead to my mom. That's
my
our
God!
mom. My mom, my wife.
You called her your
Please
mom
Yeah.
3
save
times.
me.
Getting weird.
I know. Sorry about that.
Let me save you both from this one and head to a little more college football that we got coming up here this weekend. So there's a lot of lackluster games on the schedule in terms of the point spread. A lot of big numbers out there on the board, but a lot of very interesting teams for us to take in and see what the 2023 version looks like this weekend. Dad, no more interesting place to start, I think, the beginning of the season than the round robin of coaches that will be at the helm for the Michigan Wolverines. Now, they open the season with the second best odds to make the college football playoff at -110 behind the Georgia Bulldogs. But they're going to open the first 3 games without their head coach, Jim Harbaugh, due to the self-imposed suspension after Cheeseburger Gate with the NCAA. The NCAA could tell me it's not about burgers. I know the truth. This is about burgers. And so not only is he going to be out, Dad, but their offensive coordinator and O-line coach, Sharon Moore, is also going to be out due to a self-imposed suspension following that instance. So this first game, D coordinator Jesse Minter is going to be the game day coach against East Carolina, where they are 36-point favorites. Dad, you and I both picked Michigan to make the college football playoff yesterday. But if they're going to get over the hump, and they've had the beat Georgia periods and all that fun stuff in practice, everyone joking it should be a beat TCU period, what do we need to see from this Michigan team, even early in this season, to feel like we get a handle on if they're capable of that?
Well, again, what they normally do known for: defense, ball control on offense, good efficient passing game, and that's what's got them there. They hit some big plays against Ohio State last year. They're not known for these monster big plays. They're just known for, as I said, a very tough defense and efficient offense. Great running back in Corum,
Donovan Edwards
carrying the ball. So I think in these first few games they can basically have the equipment manager coach them, right? I mean, this is not going to be no disrespect there, but that's not going to be an issue at all. And I think they have the type of team that can get into what their flow is going to be during the year, because again, it's not a high flying act. So it's efficiency and it's fundamental football, and they do that incredibly well.
And I think that's what needs to change early in the season if they want to get over the hump. Like, you look at this, we know they can do their thing very well.
Right.
And what Michigan's done in the last 3 years that they've been beating Ohio State is they've decided to build themselves in the Giga Chad version of the Big Ten model, which is we want to beat the hell out of you on both lines of scrimmage. Ohio State, in the modern era, going back to when Urban Meyer got there, was built a different way. They recruited a level of athlete and ran a type of offense that competed on the national level and won you national championships, but wasn't necessarily what we're used to in the regional ideology of that conference. Michigan said, no, we want big burly boys that are going to come out here and push around your slightly smaller burly boys, and it's worked really well for them up to a certain point.
Right.
You mentioned that Ohio State game last year. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the difference in that game. J.J. McCarthy had 3 games last year where he had over 250 yards passing against Indiana, against Ohio State, and against TCU in that game that ended up being a back-and-forth barn burner. That's got to happen more often. You've got to have a more competent downfield passing game developed if you're going to go up against the Alabamas and the Georgias and that upper crust of college football you claim to want to break through here. I think especially these early games, I called the Michigan game last year, Michigan State game last year. Michigan State's had one of the worst secondaries in college football 2 years running. And I'm like, oh, this is a great opportunity for J.J. McCarthy, who's now a veteran signal caller, to go out there and push the ball downfield, to explore their downfield passing game, so you get real live game reps of that for when you're against opponents that are going to be able to be more formidable on the line of scrimmage with you. They didn't do that, and I started to get worried after that. Because if you weren't going to dust it off for that game, when are you going to try it out? I feel like early in this season, I've got to see Michigan more willing to let J.J. McCarthy cut it loose, to try and explore that down the field. Because, again, you bring back the two-time Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line.
Yeah, you do.
Most parts of it. You've recruited great depth there. You've got a loaded backfield. J.J.'s a viable part of that running threat. I want to see them let him open it up a little bit more.
I mean, isn't it, though, that you be who you are? That's not really who they
But
are.
who you are hasn't been good enough to get over the point we're
But
talking
can you
about.
do it with these people who they haven't, 3 times they did it? Now all of a sudden you're going to think we can do it more. And who cares if they do it against ECU or whoever? I mean, you got to do it in the big games, which
That's
you
what I'm
did
saying.
in Ohio State.
And you'd like reps of that before you get to those big
I
games.
just don't know. I just don't know if that's who they are and can do that on a consistent basis. Now they did it in one-offs in Ohio State, and it worked incredibly well. TCU, we know where that went. TCU ended up playing in the title game there. So I just don't know if that's their personality, if that can become who they are.
I think you've got to try.
I mean,
you've established an incredible. Michigan's one of the highest floored programs in
Yes.
college football right now. This is about pushing for the ceiling. I mean, this is the same reason if you look at the NFL counterpart. If you look at John Harbaugh, they had one of the best rushing offenses, creative rushing offenses with Greg Roman in the NFL. And they just refused to develop a downfield passing game. And now they decided, hey, we've had a floor that's been pretty high in the AFC. We'd like to explore the ceiling. And I feel like Jim Harbaugh's probably asking himself some of those same questions this
Time
year.
will tell if they can do that.
Time will tell. We mentioned they are second best odds to make the college football playoff. Behind them, Ohio State at -115. Alabama at +135, USC at 250. We've got Penn State also in the Big Ten, just sitting on the outside looking in at +320, Dad. They open the season against West Virginia on Saturday night. They're going to be a fascinating one as well.
Yeah, but listen, Penn State, we know what it comes down to them. If they want to be in the national talking points, October 21st at Ohio State, November 11th home against Michigan. You can already look on the teams that we wonder if they're going to be part of it, part of the end game. You start to look at those. It's just like Notre Dame.
Yeah.
You know, we see their schedule and we say Ohio State, USC, Clemson. Those are the 3 games for them. For Penn State, you expect them to win the other games. Those are the 2 games, right? You take care of business in those games, you have yourself a shot. So you can point to those games to wherever they are in the season, and that's where it is for Penn State.
Going to be fascinating with them. Rhule, the era begins now after Sean Clifford, another Syracuse point guard style college tenure. And then Clemson, the Monday nightcap, which we'll get to talk about more on Monday, but they're +145 as the favorite to win the ACC at the start of the season, going up against the Duke team, Dad. Riley Leonard at quarterback, a veteran guy coming back, what Mike Elko did last year with that squad, getting to 9 wins. This is a really good shot out of the gate for Cade Klubnik, Garrett Riley, and this new-look Clemson offense going up against the Mike Elko defense that we saw firsthand when he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Can throw a lot at you.
Yeah, they're going to throw a lot at him, and we'll see how Clemson starts this game out. Again, they should be able to take care of business. We picked them to win the ACC, but we look at their schedule, September 23rd, Florida State. Right? That again going to be the matchup there is Florida State. We're going to talk about opens up with LSU in a couple of days. So that should be another good one like we had last year. But that's a big game for Clemson. Remember, when they play Notre Dame, that's out of conference. So doesn't count in the conference standings to win the ACC, of which Clemson will lose that game to Notre Dame. Am I showing my bias there? I'm sorry.
Whoopsies.
But yeah, it's a good test for Clemson. They should pass that test, and we look forward to that matchup. That's what we do in college football. We get to those certain matchups at certain parts of the year.
And we kind of assume with a lot of those teams, oh, you'll take care of business. This is a great chance. Game 1, can Clemson come out with the focus against a team like Duke that feels like they've got a lot of positive momentum from last year, going to be extremely well coached. So those are some of the exciting games coming up this season. We'll get to our 3 favorites later on. We'll give you some picks there. We will also talk to the quarterback of one of the best games this weekend, Jordan Travis, guy who's got Heisman hopes going into the season, is going to be manning the helm as the veteran for the Florida State Seminoles. We got a chance to talk with him about their upcoming matchup with LSU. Very excited, great kid. That program's certainly been on the rise and trying to compete with those Clemson players. But coming up next, let's revisit the other side of the Angels fire sale.
Oh boy.
And talk about a little wedding.
Yes.
The old pre-game wedding trick. Next, here on Golic and GoJo.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Well, the Angels are definitely going to be saving some money. The team opted to try and dip under the luxury tax by putting 6 of their veterans on waivers. Keep in mind, these are guys that they acquired at the trade deadline. 5 of those 6 players have been claimed. So guys, this roster just gonna look completely different as we enter September here. All of these guys are gone, except for our buddy Randall. He is staying. But I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, the utter collapse of the Angels, and we said they had to go for it. They went for it at the trade deadline, everything that happened with Shohei, just the worst of luck.
Again, I have no problem with, let's revisionist history here. At the deadline, they decided to keep Shohei, so they said, let's make some moves and go for it. They were close to being in the postseason at that point. And I mean, who saw it falling apart the way it did, right? Where
some people felt like
some
this was
people felt like it was an inevitable.
I guess this is what I don't understand. They were closer than they've been in a while. So, and you're at the point, okay, you have to make a decision on Shohei. I get it. But you say, okay, we're close. Let's make some moves. We have a guy who's pitching great, who's hitting great. Let's go for it. I still don't have a problem with that initial move. And then once they started then losing and Ohtani hurts the elbow, probably going to need another Tommy John, it fell apart.
I don't have a problem with the initial move either because of what it represents and because of who the Angels are. I can look and say, yeah, there are plenty of people who probably could have predicted the Angels weren't actually going to make the postseason based on how they were playing, based on trends with them. That seems realistic to me. But when you look at what the value proposition was here, right? It was go for it to try and give yourself the best chance possible of keeping Shohei by making the playoffs.
Right.
Or trade him for a king's ransom on the other side. The Angels have had 2 of the best players in modern baseball history.
Yes.
What do we think they're going to do with that king ransom that's going to change that trajectory all that much? Like I don't know if we've talked about that enough, is on the other side. This is an organization that has shown themselves to be largely inept when it comes to team building up to a level that will get you to a postseason or anything even closely resembling that with 2 of the best players that we've ever seen. And so because you're able to go get a bunch of picks to go and try and get the next version of these guys, we think all of a sudden the Angels are going to be able to rewrite their own destiny? No, probably not. So I'm with you. Yep. I don't really have an issue with the way they went about it because they took a big swing on their best chance of keeping the thing they have here and now and maybe understand who they were. We're not very good at this.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they hadn't done it in the past with the 2 best players, so they gave it a shot. You can't predict the future. All you can do is live in that moment and say, we're close. Let's go for it while we have these players. We've had these players for a few years, and we haven't done squat with it. So now let's make a move and let's try, and it backfired.
Speaking of making a move, Robert Acuña Jr. made several moves. Yesterday might have been, on and off the field, one of the best days we have ever seen a player have in modern sports history. And now, Robert Acuña Jr. on the diamond. They played the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Big matchup, yeah.
Barn burner of a game here.
Yeah.
He hits a grand slam to help them win 8-7 in that game and becomes the first player. He was already the first player in Major League history with 29 home runs and 60 stolen bases, but he becomes the first player with 30 home runs and 60 stolen bases.
And they have a month to go yet in the regular season.
And still,
I mean, incredible.
It's unbelievable. But that is not the only story of Robert Acuña Jr.'s day. No, he actually saved the ticket stub from this game to make sure that he could commemorate the special occasion that happened before this game, Jesse, where we got to see a guy full-blown marry the love of his life in a pregame ceremony.
Yeah, they went to a friend's backyard about 45 minutes from the team's hotel, and they got married. They have 2 young sons together, and yeah, I guess it was mentioned that she has a Venezuelan visa and she would have had to leave the country for 3 months before being able to come back. And he's like, this is my family. I want my family here. What if we make the postseason?
They got engaged in January.
Yes.
They wanted to get married in Venezuela. That's where their kids were born. That's where they go back in the off-season.
So they were postponing the wedding and whatnot. And he's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do, maybe they'll have like a big party later. But he's like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want my family to have to leave and come back. So they just said, let's make it official.
And there was a deadline to it. This is much like the proposal of Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds, right?
1 week.
Right.
The much less problematic Sandra Bullock movie.
That's exactly, yes. Well played.
Currently.
So here's the deal. Under the terms of her Venezuelan visa, Maria had to leave the United States by the end of the week which is today, and wouldn't be allowed to return for another 3 months, keeping her and the children away for a stretch run that may obviously see Acuña and his team in the World Series and him winning the MVP. So they basically had by today. So they had the backyard wedding yesterday, and I'm sure all will be fine with them. I think all is going to be good.
Kind of hysterical, though. Nobody knew about it.
I know.
He was like, yeah, I didn't tell anyone. None of my
He called his
teammates
business
knew.
manager and said, hey, we need to get this done before the end of the week.
When you're managing Ronald Acuña Jr.'s business, the amount of business he brings into you, when your client calls you and says, hey, I need a wedding by tomorrow morning, you don't ask how.
Nope.
You just get it done.
Picking up phones, making calls, getting it done.
Oh,
I
man,
will say, the one funny thing in this to me was it was positioned, and Alden Gonzalez on ESPN.com is a great article that kind of chronicles the whole situation. And one of the things that was brought up was, well, in the next few months, Ronald Acuña Jr. likely going to be the MVP, could potentially win a World Series. They've been the best team in baseball most of this season, and he wouldn't want his family to miss out on that moment.
Right.
So if they'd sucked this year, would this not have gone down? When he
Yeah,
just went,
right.
oh, you guys can go and kick
Go
it in
ahead.
Venezuela.
Go back.
I'll see you in a few
Insinuation.
I'll be
weeks.
back soon.
We might not even win a postseason game at this rate, so I'll just see you in the off season, and we'll plan the wedding accordingly. Like, if they had been bad, would they not be married right now?
Well,
Kind of hysterical.
The thing about it is, as well, he knew when the visa ended, and obviously they're the best team in the National League right now, the best record, and he's having a monster year. We've known that for a little while now, so I'm interested why they didn't get married a month ago.
Let it
or a
come
couple
down,
of
really
weeks
come down
ago.
to the wire.
Instead
They
of
wanted to wait
we're
until
coming
the week
down to
of.
the wire to have to be back in Venezuela today had they not been married.
It's pretty remarkable. I mean, congratulations to him for beating the clock on that one. I mean, God, if the Braves are smart, some type of proposal spoof on social media would be a nice touch here.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it fits the mold.
A really good rom-com to have your life loosely based off, too.
Oh, yeah. I
Absolutely.
mean, listen, phenomenal movie, by the way.
Oh, great movie.
Great movie, great
One of
actors.
the all-time greats.
The whole deal. Oh, by the way, going back to the game, 8-7 game, Mookie Betts, who we've been talking about trying to, push Acuña Jr. for MVP in the National League. He had 2 home runs in this game, almost had a third. Actually, it was a deep fly ball to right field that could have been the third, but it was a fly out to Acuña Jr. close to the warning track on that one. So hell of a game for the team with the 2 best, with some great records going into the postseason in another month.
I know we've talked about the unfortunate injury to Shohei Ohtani, a guy who's been the biggest show in baseball for the last couple of years. But to have that kind of game with 2 guys that are battling back and forth for the NL MVP and who are 2 of the brightest young stars in baseball. I mean, the other thing that you're reminded in reading this article is Ronald Acuña Jr., 25 years old.
Yeah.
25 years old, marrying his 23-year-old fiance. They are kids. He is a kid, and he is a kid who is very good at baseball.
Yeah, and let's not lose sight of the fact, my hometown of Cleveland, it was the Guardians who claimed a couple of these players from the
Guardians
Angels.
and the Reds.
Yeah.
Ohio really loves themselves the Angels.
But the Guardians, even though they're 6 games under 500, they are just 5 out of the division lead from Minnesota. So trying to make that, late season run there with those couple of acquisitions. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens indeed. So we're going to have a lot coming down the stretch here in Major League Baseball that's very exciting. Again, big congratulations to the Acuña family.
Absolutely.
Now we
love to see it.
We
We
love
love to
on
see
this
it.
show.
We love love.
I bet they'll have a hell of a honeymoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great honeymoon, and I guess you can still throw in the party. I do feel like at the very least, you pop the registry up there.
Oh,
right?
definitely. Well,
The
they don't
registry?
really need it.
Do you really
yeah.
think? I mean, if you have that much money,
You just buy what you want.
do you have other people buy you gifts still?
I mean, they don't have to be crazy, but like maybe there's some stuff in the kitchen that you've been looking for here. You want one of those?
He can go buy it.
I mean, listen, how do you stay rich, man?
That's true. That's true.
And it's your wedding. Like, they couldn't make it to your wedding. That's rude of them to not show up at a wedding that you planned at the
People
last
want
minute.
to send gifts.
Yes.
So
They
this is
crave
just
it.
giving them
They
the
yearn to
opportunity.
give.
Just wonder if there's a threshold where it feels awkward to ask for gifts because you have so much friggin' money.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's why I stopped giving you gifts years ago.
That's
Oh,
not
That's
cool.
smart.
That
It's financial wisdom.
nobody
exactly.
asked you on that.
It's just
just
good
offer.
financial
I will
planning.
sick my wife
Just
on
offer.
you.
I'm
okay?
scared enough.
Coming up next, from rings to ring hopefuls, we'll talk to Jordan Travis, the Florida State starting quarterback who's looking to get them back in the national spotlight. Next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GoJo15. Guys, we got a lot to get into right here. We're going to talk some college football, Heisman hopefuls. You guys are going to talk to a Heisman hopeful, so let's just jump right in.
Yeah, we are very excited to talk to Jordan Travis, who is going to lead us to one of the biggest games of this season, going to try and lead Florida State back to the promised land. They made big strides last year under Mike Norvell, and now heading into year 4 for him. Big time stuff to prove there. But Dad, before we get to Jordan Travis and what's going to go on in this game, we got a chance to talk with him about this upcoming matchup, about this upcoming season. We saw over there on the board, high up on the list, third best Heisman odds in this season, tied with Cade Klubnik of Clemson and Sam Hartman of Notre Dame, who jumped up in odds after their Week 0 win over Navy. So a lot to get into with Jordan, but Dad, they also play in the ACC that's making some news right now. Pete Thamel over at ESPN just reporting that sources say ACC presidents and chancellors have voted this morning to extend invitations to Stanford, Cal, and SMU to now push the ACC to 18 teams. So we had all the hemming and hawing. We know that was a meeting that was supposed to take place Monday of this week, but because of the shooting on North Carolina's campus, they moved that meeting, understandably so. But now in the meeting here, and again, the presidents and chancellors, the people who really make all these decisions around college football, now extending the invite to those 3 teams who we've heard, Dad, have offered to take massive pay cuts, and in SMU's case, not take any money for the first number of years of this deal, so that the revenue boost for the current members of the conference would be there. We'll still wait to see how that money shakes out with the details, but now we have Cal, Stanford, and SMU joining what I've seen many dub the All-Coast Conference.
Yeah, it is. How about it? Just a matter of what coast, right?
Yes.
So another interesting twist of this is, remember, Florida State had started speaking up, about, hey, we need to distribute the money differently, and also that there were 6 or 7 teams maybe exploring the possibility of leaving the ACC. There is something in the deal, the money deal, media rights with ESPN, that if the ACC falls below a certain number of teams in the conference, ESPN can pay them less. They'll get less money. So this is a way to bolster by 3 more teams to maybe offset if there are some teams that leave. So you figure this was going to happen. I didn't think the ACC was going to be saying no to this one. So it's just a matter of jumping through now the hoops to finish this thing up.
We talked about it with the Big 12. More is better if you're not one of the Big 2 conferences in the Big 10 and the SEC. Those details we were talking about, Pete Thamel went on to explain. Cal, Stanford, and SMU. SMU is expected to come in for 9 years with no broadcast media net revenue.
That is amazing.
They told ESPN. And both Cal and Stanford are expected to receive 30% shares of ACC payout. The money being withheld is expected to create an annual pot of revenue between $50 and $60 million for the rest of the conference. Some of that will be divided proportionally among the 14 full-time members and Notre Dame. With other portions being put in a pool designated for success initiatives that report programs who win. And Dad, that's quietly been, I think, a lot of the background conversation on this is some of the clever accounting to make sure that teams like Florida State, teams like Clemson, the bigger brands that have wanted to feel a little bit more of the love looking at their TV deal and not necessarily liking how it stacks up compared to the Big Ten, compared to the SEC, now going behind closed doors and saying, hey, we feel like we're carrying a lot of the weight around here and we want to see the money that comes along with that.
But MSU, no money.
No money for the first 9 years. And now some of these teams, they've talked about Stanford, the endowment, the money in other places they can count on this coming from, but that is a real admission by the powers involved of the worry of being left out.
Don't be left out. Get in somewhere by hook or by crook. Get there just so you have a home.
Yeah, you've got to find an excuse or find a way right now. So again, according to Pete Thamel over at ESPN, the ACC chancellors and presidents voting to extend the invitations to Cal, Stanford, and SMU to join the conference. That would be 18 full-time members, 17 football playing members, since we know Notre Dame, a member in the other sports, not a member in football. We will wait and see, but that will start as soon as next year as the College Football Realignment Roundtable continues to spin. Let's set it aside for a second and get to our conversation with Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis about his upcoming season and big game this weekend here. Very excited to welcome in Florida State starting quarterback Jordan Travis, getting ready to kick off the opening week of college football. And Jordan, first and foremost, before we get to you guys playing in, I think, the crown jewel of week 1 in college football as far as matchups we got on the slate here, you're just wrapping up training camp number 6. I did 5 of these things. What's it felt like being the old man at training camp?
It feels good. Opportunity just to go out and be a Seminole was a blessing from the man upstairs, going out on the field and taking it with my boys every single day and just working hard. Obviously, camp it's a lot of hours every single day. It feels like you're there all day, and you go to sleep and you're back the next morning at 6 a.m. So, I mean, it was so enjoyable. I just got done telling the team that this was the most enjoyable camp for me I've ever had. Not because it's my last one, but because just seeing the guys grow and the bond and getting closer and closer every single day is a blessing. So, yeah, every opportunity I have to go take the field with my boys is a blessing, man.
Do you think this is the closest team you've been on as far as the way you feel with the other guys in the locker room?
1,000%. Usually you get tired of people if you see them all day long, but I see them the next morning. I'm so excited to see them. You have a smile on your face, and you want to go to work for guys like that, and you want to work with guys like that and compete with guys like that. So, yeah, man, this is the closest we've been.
What do you attribute that to? Was that something you guys did differently in this offseason? Is it the mix of leaders you have? What gets you to that point as a team?
I say it's a little bit of everything. I feel like it starts up top with our coaching staff. They make us feel so loved and make this game fun. At the end of the day, it's football. Football is a game. Yeah, it's our job, and we got to go out and work every single day. But they make it's fun. I mean, you can't be here all day and everything be all serious and can't joke around, can't have a smile on your face. I mean, it's football. We're playing football. It's the game we played since we were 4 or 5 years old. So you always have to enjoy the game. But, yeah, man, I would just say it's a little bit of everything. The leaders are doing a great job of just stepping up every day. I mean, it starts up top. Like I always say, Coach Norvell does a great job of just making this game fun. So I think I give a lot of credit to him.
Well, and for you guys going into this season, I feel like there's a lot of good energy around the program. You had such a promising 2022, and now in the ACC, everyone's talking about you and Clemson in the same breath as far as teams that could or should win this conference. How's it been for you guys managing those expectations now? Because I'd imagine that's a little bit different than what you've dealt with in years past here.
We always have to keep the same mindset. We know where we came from. We know exactly where we came from. I've been here for going on my 5th year. Man, we were down in the dumps and talked about as the worst team in the ACC and in college football. I feel like we've always stayed level-headed no matter what, all the highs, the lows. But it makes you who you are today. We're a strong team, but the best thing about this team is the people we have. It's a bunch of humble, very humble people, which is really special. You don't see that across the country, how they treat people every single day. And I think that shows on the field. We're always just level-headed. We know who we are. At the end of the day, we're football players at Florida State University, and we want to represent this university well and the coaching staff well and each other well. So we keep a level head, man. I always have that chip on our shoulder and go out and work.
You mentioned some of the low moments there. I was there calling a game in 2021. You guys were playing against Louisville and ended up starting off the season 0-4 for the first time since the 1970s at Florida State. And I remember walking to practice that Friday. I got to go watch you guys out there, and I was amazed. And I've always told people the energy around that practice, the way that you guys were attacking things, you wouldn't have been able to tell that you guys were 0-3 up until that point. And so I'm curious when you got to those low moments, because there were a lot of people saying things about your coach and Mike Norvell on the outside, a lot of noise. What did he say to you guys in those low moments to keep everything on track?
The same thing he always says. Coach Norvell has never changed. From the first day he got here, he has never changed, and I stand on that. No matter what, 0-3, 0-4, if we're 5-0, whatever it is, Coach Norvell is always going to be the same person. He's always going to coach us hard and love us really hard. So, I mean, no matter what, nothing changed with Coach Norvell and this team. I mean, we just had to get our head on right. That same Sunday, every single Sunday after a loss or win, we're in the weight room squatting, and that shows a lot. You don't hear guys complaining when you're 0-3 and you're in the weight room and we're squatting and we're benching and we're doing that type of stuff. And you don't hear guys complaining. You can tell that it's just going to take a little while, and we're gonna change it around. And we all believed in him and believed in this coaching staff and believed in each other. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned this coaching staff, and part of that for a while, he's no longer here on the team with you guys anymore, but I've seen and heard it written a lot about your relationship with Kenny Dillingham, who was your offensive coordinator there for a couple of years, is now the head coach at Arizona State. Why does he mean so much to you? What was Kenny Dillingham and yours relationship in your football journey?
Yeah, that's probably one of the closest coaches I've ever had in my life. At the end of the day, he has changed my life around and my confidence around and how I walk around with my head held high. When I was going through a lot, I believe it was the first year they were here or second year they were here, I was going through a lot of ups and downs, got booed at Notre Dame, all that type of stuff. No matter what, Coach Dillingham believed in me since day one. I went in their room, I think it was the first or second day they were there, and I told them I could play receiver. They shot that down right away, and, man, they just instilled so much confidence in me, who I am as a person. I couldn't thank him enough. I still talk to him until today. He always sends me notes in the mail, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, man, Coach Dillingham, he's a really special person, a great coach. But the best thing about him is he really cares about the person before the player. And I always think that's important when it comes to coaches, because you can't find that across the country. So, yes, sir.
That's incredible, and I think the fans at Arizona State certainly got to be fired up to hear that about the guy that's going to be in charge of helping resurrect that program. Let's look at this year's team, because in college football now, it's so different from when I played there with the ability the portal can have to help impact the team each year. You guys got big production from transfer players last year in the portal, and this year you guys bring on a few more here. Jaheim Bell comes over from South Carolina. Keon Coleman comes over in this receiving group. How do you, as a leader and a quarterback on this team, go about helping guys get acclimated really quickly to your guys' culture here at Florida State and how you do things?
Well, yeah, first I give props to the coaching staff. Once again, they recruit guys that are going to fit in this locker room, because, like Coach Norvell says, Florida State is not for everybody. We work our tails off every single day, and we have to have a positive and consistent mindset every single day and be the same person. So I give them kudos because they recruit great people. So these guys come in here and they're themselves, and it's very easy in this locker room because you have guys, like I said before, the brotherhood in this locker room is like no other. I've been places before, and I've been here before where the locker room has not always been like this. So the guys come in, they feel comfortable, and I always say, like, within a week, those guys break out of their shell and they're themselves, man. So, yeah, as a leader, I mean, our jobs are just to help those guys feel comfortable because, I know how it feels when you transfer over to a new school. You always don't feel comfortable, man. You always feel like everyone's looking at you differently. But with this team, I mean, we have leaders that are just really special and just make you feel like you're supposed to be here.
And you guys have a lot of big-time names that people are expecting great things out of this year. Obviously, starting with yourself, but Trey Benson in that backfield, Jared Verse on defense, Johnny Wilson in the wide receiver room. As you guys have gone through camp this year, have there been any guys that have stuck out to you, either on your side of the ball or that you've gone against on defense, that you think people aren't talking enough about heading into this 2023 season that are going to be a big reason why you guys are successful?
Yeah, the one guy, I mean, I can go on and on about every single person on this team. Is that everyone had their moments in camp. But, I mean, Jaheim Bell, Kyle Morlock, I mean, Destin Hill, Keon. I mean, Keon has stood out to me a lot. I mean, he's just the work ethic that he has. Man, he just comes to work every single day. He's a freak athlete and makes big-time plays. On the defensive side, I mean, all those guys, Darrell Jackson, I mean, he's huge, 6'6", 6'7". He bats a lot of balls down. We got freaking Brandon Fisk. I mean, I can go on and on, man. These guys are just hard workers. That's what I love to see is just a bunch of guys that come in. Yeah, like they might have all these accolades and preseason stuff, but no matter what, they're themselves every day, and they just come to work. I mean, we know confidence comes from the work, and that's all we do.
So you guys are, as I said at the beginning of this, in one of the premier matchups of the early college football season, going up against LSU, a rematch of a game that you guys played last year, was one of the most exciting games of the season, and we got it so early on. What do you take away? Obviously, every team's different every year, but what do you take away from that matchup with LSU last year that you think helps, or especially for the guys that weren't around for that one, that you're trying to communicate about the team you're getting ready to face?
Yeah, I mean, they're a great football team on both sides of the ball and have a great coach. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to us. We always talk about focusing on ourselves. We believe that we are the only team that can beat ourselves. I mean, it comes down to little mental mistakes and stuff like that. So we're just trying to get all that corrected, man. Focusing on us and just be our best every single day. We're going to take it day by day. We got practice tomorrow night. and meetings later in the day. So we're just going to focus on that right now. Just get as much knowledge as we can, because knowledge is our greatest talent. So just trying to grow that every single day. The mental aspect of everything. I feel like practice is a lot harder than games because Coach Norvell pushes us so hard, and he curses us out a little bit, so we get uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So yeah, Coach Norvell does a great job. So man, just focusing on ourselves, take it day by day, and when it gets here, get ready to roll.
All right, it's so true, and it's the mindset that so many people don't understand. It sounds cliche from the outside, but it's the only way you get through a long season like you guys have and have the kind of success you want to. If you've got that myopic view of how you're going to approach all this, it makes total sense. And I know we're really excited to watch you guys cut it loose for that reason. Before I let you go here, I want to get you out here on a couple of quick ones, just looking at your team in this upcoming season. I want to start off. You mentioned Coach Norvell a couple of times and just how steady of a force he's been, what he's meant to your guys' program. What's something people don't know about Mike Norvell? Maybe something funny, maybe something you guys see behind the scenes that we don't, that people should start to get to know with your head coach.
I mean, I just always say he's a really special person. He's a great person. He always comes off as a serious guy on the sidelines and all that type of stuff. But the guy really cares and loves his team. One thing, like Coach Fuller said last night, he's been a part of, played in the NFL for 10 years, had coaches before. He's never had a coach sit there and tell his team that he loves them and he appreciates it every single day. So I just say Coach Norvell, man, he's a great person, and he truthfully cares about the people we are and what we're going through in life. He's preparing us for life after football, which is really special. And like we're so blessed to have him. We couldn't be more thankful.
It's an incredible testament to the man he is leading your team, no doubt. I'm sure he'll enjoy hearing that from you as well. Looking out at the rest of your team, we talked about some of the guys that impressed you. I want to know of your guys' team, who's the biggest trash talker in the Florida State locker room and who's the best at it?
We have a couple. I would say that most of them are all of them are on the defensive side. I would say Jared Verse talks probably the most. I mean, it doesn't always make sense, but he definitely talks the most. Jared, Jerry and Jones, I would say he's probably the best at it. But yeah, we have a bunch across the defensive side, and I would say that one on the offensive side is probably Keon. Keon talks a lot.
Wide receivers and defensive players talking smack. I, for one, am totally shocked. For you guys, you have one of the best, I think, pregame atmospheres in college football. You know, the flaming spear in the middle of the field, all that pomp and circumstance. Outside of your guys' home environment here, what's been your favorite environment that you've gotten to play at in your college football career so far?
I would say I enjoy playing at Boston College a lot. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was my first game I ever played in at Florida State. I don't know if it's that. I love that stadium. I feel like we always play there in the cold. I'm not used to playing in the cold, so it's a little change up. But yeah, I just feel like the atmosphere is just it's really cool there. Just the city, the people are very respectful and nice. So yeah, I enjoy that place a lot.
Man, I've played a lot of games up there. I always said the metal bleachers in there really retain the smell of alcohol coming from the student section really well. So I always felt like I could smell it coming off them, especially playing up there at night. It's an interesting stadium. Last one here, and everyone defines this differently. For you, what does a successful season in 2023 look like for the Florida State Seminoles?
I mean, obviously, we want to win every single football game we play. Win the play in front of us. But the main thing, like I said before, just focus on the day in front of us. Continue to be great people. Continue to treat the janitor the same as you treat the AD. Continue just to walk around this city with your head held high no matter what's going on and a smile on your face. Because God's great, and God wakes you up in the morning. Just be your best every single day. So, yeah, man, it's to win every single game and just to continue to grow as people and players.
Awesome stuff, man. Jordan, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a great season, and I think everyone's excited about what you guys got coming up ahead of you here, one play at a time. Thanks so much, man, and best of luck.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Awesome guy to talk to. Great leader for a great program, getting to play in one of the biggest games of the weekend. Coming up next, we will look at the 3 biggest games of this week 1 of college football next here on GoJo and Golic.
All right, the countdown to the start of the NFL season is officially on, and we are more than ready here at DraftKings. So here's what's coming your way on DraftKings Network to get you ready.
Football needs to hurry the heck up.
We couldn't agree more. This is your invite to a jam-packed week of preseason shows featuring our brightest football minds.
We really need to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm down to do that.
Join us for our Hurry Up House Party. Tune in and ball out as our hosts drop fantasy, betting, and fan need-to-knows. That way, you'll be more than ready at our live Thursday kickoff show from Kansas City. Watch all the shows on Samsung TV Plus or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Starts Thursday, August 31st on DraftKings Network.
Guys, we're not quite there yet. We still have some college football to talk about, okay?
We're not, but we're close.
Yes,
That gets
we
me
are.
excited every time. How do they make it look like we were all talking to each other?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Excellent work.
I, for one,
Showbiz, baby.
am shocked.
I don't
That
know how
is showbiz, baby. Guys, this is also showbiz. Very excited. So we've got week one. Started off last night. Some exciting games we've gotten to talk about. We talked about some of the big performers going into this weekend.
Right.
But let's get to some of the favorite games that we've identified here. This is going to be the first of our weekly series, our college football weekend preview, brought to you by Modelo, the mark of a fighter. And there's going to be some dogfights this weekend that we are very excited to check out in this. Let's start off now. We're going to make picks for these games too. I can't pick this game because I am on the call
Yes,
on
you are.
radio.
Right.
For North Carolina, South Carolina, the home of college game day for week one. Darius Rucker, we had on yesterday,
Right.
going to be the honorary captain for South Carolina, going to sing the national anthem. Dad, North Carolina, a 2.5-point favorite in this game. They come into this game ranked. South Carolina unranked in their first meeting since the 2021 Dukes Mayo Bowl.
So you called that game, TV game, Dukes Mayo Bowl. That is a game. Why don't you tell everybody what you did in the booth for that game?
That's the shot heard around the world. The thing that I will probably leave my time at ESPN most known for is dunking an Oreo in mayonnaise, eating it on air, and pissing off the entire country of Australia and Dionne Warwick.
Dionne Warwick was really mad with you about that.
Miss Dionne, I don't know if she's forgiven me.
Yeah.
We need to reach out to her people and see if we can mend fences on the other side of this, because I'm probably going to do some weird Mayo stuff again. this weekend.
Mayo-gate.
Shane Beamer got the Mayo bath after
Yes.
that game. They dumped a tub of mayonnaise on him, and we talked to him about that. He's like, you don't really know what to expect till that mayonnaise hits you.
Yeah, so
it's a different thing.
no mayonnaise bath on the line in this game. This is the Dukes Kickoff Classic. It's going to be at Bank of America in Charlotte. Last year, I believe this was Georgia and Oregon that
Right.
played in this game. But, Dad, this season going into this game, we mentioned North Carolina, 2.5-point favorite. Drake May, one of the names up there with Caleb Williams for the potential #1 overall pick in the draft. You've got Spencer Rattler,
Yeah.
who his 3-game stretch to end last season
Yeah.
has a lot of people excited about if he can finally live up to the potential that we saw all the way back in, I think, QB1 was the show.
The one thing, does that carry over those 3 games, 1,000 yards, 68% completion, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Drake May going to play without one of the transfer wide receivers.
Tez Walker, it looks like, as the NCAA has decided to enforce a bunch of the different waiver rules in the one-time transfer rule, all of a sudden, unfortunately, transfer wideout Tez Walker looks like he might be a victim of that, might not be available.
I am so fascinated. Now, we'll see how much he's in there, but with the true freshman South Carolina has, Nick Harbor, true freshman, 6'6", 245, you figure tight end, wide receiver, 10-200. You see that on Twitter, that film, that video of him running the 100 against guys he's twice the size of and beating them.
If you haven't seen it, go look up. This is number 1. Bruce Feldman puts out his freaks list every year of the most physically impressive lads in college football. You rarely get a freshman up near the top. He is number 1 on the freaks list this year, and that video of him running against all those poor, hapless little non-athletes.
Unreal. So we'll see how much he gets involved in the game. I'm going with South Carolina in this one.
All right, South Carolina plus 2.5.
Yes, I am. I'm picking South Carolina. I'm picking them to win.
Man, this one is really tough, and again, I can't pick it, but I will say is both sides have big questions to answer. North Carolina along the offensive and defensive lines of scrimmage. Can you stop anybody? Because last year, Drake May, like Caleb Williams, spent a lot of time running for his life in those games. And Spencer Rattler's group on offense loses a bunch up front on the offensive line, loses a bunch up front on the defensive line between transfers and players going on to the NFL. And so can they manage it? They got a really good young secondary going up against a North Carolina wide receiver corps that lost its best weapon in Josh Downs last year. That connection between him and Drake May was really important for a Tar Heels offense that looked really good, and then sort of everything fell apart for them at the very end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these are obviously two teams that are going to lean heavily on the quarterbacks from week 1 to the last week of the season. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to go South Carolina for the straight-out win.
All right, there we go. Dad's got South Carolina winning straight up, again, minus 2.5 for UNC on DraftKings Sportsbook. Dad, let's get to game 2. This one is kind of the oddity on both sides, really. TCU versus Colorado. It's Deion's first game at Colorado. They're 20.5-point dogs taking on TCU. 53 transfer players coming in for them, we know, but also plenty of change on the other side for Sonny Dykes and TCU. Losing Max Duggan, their Heisman runner-up, Quentin Johnston, Kendre Miller, their offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley. So how do you feel about this one?
Well, I mean, listen, last year, Colorado was somewhat at a 1-11 season, lost by 25 or something like that, right in that area there. As we mentioned, both sides losing a lot. TCU the normal way, Colorado by basically Deion Sanders, just everybody get out. You know, I'm bringing in my own players. This one is not a hard pick on who will win. TCU is going to win. Colorado is going to struggle this year. But I'll say this: spread is 20.5. I'm going to give the point. I mean, I'm going to take those points.
All right.
Right? So I think
you're going to say chaos theory, that enough newness.
Deion Sanders is going to try some wacky stuff right out of the gate. He's going to be that showman. He's going to have some trick plays, and I think they'll keep it closer. So I think it'll be less than the 20.5.
All right, I'll go on the other side of that just for fun, and I'll say TCU figures it out. Chandler Morris, by the way, who's going to be the starter, for those who don't remember, was the starter going into last season for TCU, suffered an injury, and then Max Duggan takes over and winds up as your Heisman runner-up. So that's certainly going to be interesting to watch. Can he reclaim that same form under Kendall Briles now, who comes over as their offensive coordinator from Arkansas? Dad, last one here, LSU versus Florida State. We talked to Jordan Travis. LSU, 2.5-point favorites in this game. Florida State won 24-23 last year in a game full of special teams mistakes for LSU. Missed kicks, a bunch of snafus. That's why, Dad, I'm going to take LSU, and I'm going to give the points on this one. I think how appropriate would it be for them to win by a field goal after last year's game marred by special teams disaster?
And I'm going to take Florida State for the win in this one. I look at the rushing by both teams, one running back, one quarterback. Trey Benson last year for Florida State, 15 yards on 6 carries, but he really kind of broke out after that. So can he get it going for them? And we talk about Jaden Daniels, a quarterback for LSU, threw for, I think, a little over 200 yards last year, but ran for 114 yards on 16 carries. So him carrying the ball, how dangerous, as a former D lineman, the danger of a quarterback being an effective runner can really put some stress on your defense.
Yeah, a lot of people can have eyes on Jared Verse, a guy who's expected to be one of those top 10 draft picks on the edge for Florida State, having to corral a guy like that on the perimeter. And then, listen, on the defensive side for LSU, this is where I think the game is won for them. Mekhi Wingo, unbelievable player inside. They're going to be without one of their starting D tackles, Mason Smith, because of a suspension. and then Harold Perkins rocking a single-digit number this year. If that doesn't shift that man's Heisman odds, I don't know what can.
But LSU kind of known for their DBs, especially cornerbacks going to the NFL. 2 transfer cornerbacks here, Zy Alexander and Deuce Chestnut. So how quickly do they assimilate to the new team, and going against the passing offense of Florida State? So that could be an interesting area on the outsides.
Both teams have been portal mavens here.
Yep.
Jaheim Bell, we talked about with Jordan Travis. Keon Coleman coming over from Michigan State. Dynamic playmakers to go along with Johnny Wilson's gigantic self already in that wideout room. Going to be a real one. The over is live in this game too, I think. 56.5 points. I would be on the over side. Life's too short to bet the under.
Here's what cannot be overestimated for first games. No matter how much you practice, you haven't played a live game, if teams can put together 12, 13, 15 play drives of how that will wear out the other team's defense.
And that's going to be interesting for Florida State this year. They were one of the best big play offenses in college football, sputtered in the red zone. If they can make improvement and be average in the red zone this season, their ACC hopes and dreams, their college football playoff hopes and dreams are absolutely alive and well. Those are 3 of the biggest games in college football coming up this weekend. Coming up next, though, I want to take a look at an interesting situation that we have yet to get to in the NFL. The Jets have been a live dog on Hard Knocks this preseason, but we had a little bit of a scuffle, a kerfuffle of sorts between Aaron Rodgers and one defensive player taking umbrage with him and Randall Cobb's actions. Next, here on GoJo and Golic. All right, before we get to Jahad Ward versus Aaron Rodgers, let's take a look at the 2023 College Football Hall of Fame class that got announced yesterday, Dad. We've started to hit college and NFL in the Hall of Fame classes that make me nostalgic for my childhood, the guys that were big-time players when I was coming up in my most formidable years. And this is an absolute stacked class. Eric Berry, Michael Bishop, Reggie Bush, who is the best college football player I have seen with my own 2 eyes, Dwight Freeney, Robert Gallery, LaMichael James, Luke Kuechly, Jeremy Maclin, Bryant McKinney, Michael Stonebreaker, Notre Dame's very own, Tim Tebow, Troy Vincent, Brian Westbrook. D'Angelo Williams, coaches Monty Cater, Paul Johnson, Roy Kramer, and Mark Richt also getting the nod there. I mean, pound for pound, one of the strongest classes you'll ever see.
And I know you always have the story about Luke Kuechly, who was an incredible college player.
Oh, my God.
Going to be a Hall of Famer in the NFL as well. Just how smart he was.
Luke Kuechly is one of the best defensive players. Honestly, him and Mark Herzlich, both linebackers at Boston College during my time at Notre Dame. Those guys would have walked on water, but I'll never forget, we're playing Boston College my senior year, and they weren't a great team. We were better than them. We should have been winning that game. And Luke Kuechly is sitting over there on defense, smart as a whip, calling out every play. We're still running and getting success, and he would get up frustrated after every play, looking at his teammates going, guys, I'm telling you exactly where the ball is going to go. And we just laughed because the rest of the players weren't as good as Luke Kuechly. So there wasn't much they could do about it. But I will never forget, we had a play we'd just put in for that week. We had not shown it on tape before. It was a fake off of one of those wide receiver tunnel screens where you throw it to a wide out and he comes back in towards the middle of the field, and we were going to have our wide receiver pitched to a running back that was flaring out of the backfield, like a little razzle-dazzle. Luke Kuechly beelines straight for the wide receiver, runs right past him without even breaking stride, as if he wasn't even there, and tackles the running back for a 6-yard loss, and then gets up and dusts himself off and goes about his way. We had not shown the play before. We had not run that play all season, and Luke Kuechly looked and said, oh, no, I know exactly what time it is. That guy was just built different physically, but from the neck up, one of the most intelligent players we've ever seen, and that obviously showed very much in his NFL career.
He's one of the best I've ever seen as his toughness and then diagnosing plays. I'm going to do this real quick. Might be self-serving for my family. But one of the names you mentioned, Michael Stonebreaker from Notre Dame, linebacker, going into the College Football Hall of Fame. And let me start by saying, well-deserved.
Absolutely.
He should absolutely be in the College Football Hall of Fame. But I'm sitting here now going to kind of push for why my brother Bob is not in the College Football Hall of Fame. My brother Bob was a 2-time All-American at Notre Dame, his last year consensus, won a national title in 1977. And quickly, Michael Stonebreaker was a 2-time consensus first-team All-American, won the title in '88 as well. And as I said, completely deserves to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. But my brother Bob was also a 2-time All-American, won the '77 title, was the MVP of that bowl game against Texas, and Earl Campbell, the Heisman Trophy winner, is second on the all-time tackle list at Notre Dame behind Bob Crable, is tied for a single-season tackles in a game with 26, tied with Bob Crable, who also deservedly in the College Football Hall of Fame. How my brother Bob is not in the College Football Hall of Fame, I do not know, and I don't know what the process is, but he is, without question, more than deserving to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. That was my family rant there, but I think a justifiable one and deserve it for him to be in.
Yeah, no, listen, totally understandable, and I know this has no bearings on the College Football Hall of Fame portion of these things, but doing all of that while also being an All-American wrestler at Notre Dame as well. So a 2-sport All-American guy, absolutely deserving of that. Completely agree. It is a nostalgic class overall. We're just coming off on Netflix, the Swamp Kings documentary that I thought did a really poor job of looking back at those Urban Meyer Florida teams, but did remind you of Tim Tebow. I remember talking to guys that played against him at Florida State that said when Tim Tebow ran over by the sideline, that guy looked and felt 10 foot tall and bulletproof on the football field. He was a force of nature out on there. And him, Reggie Bush, 2 of the premier names in the sport in my adult lifetime.
One of the great classes going in, and I will still always hold it against Reggie Bush for the Bush push beating Notre Dame. So
I know. Well, I was supposed to be at that game.
Yes, you were.
My high school football team was supposed to play. So we were small Catholic school in central Connecticut, and because of a town ordinance, we didn't have lights at our field permanently because there's a neighborhood right next to it. They would have had to sign off. We got them to agree to sign off on us bringing in portable lights so we could play on a Friday night. We normally played, forget Friday night lights, we played Saturday afternoon sunshine, which is lackluster and deeply emblematic of the sport's relevance in Connecticut. But we had finally gotten them to sign off on a Friday night game. And so that was the weekend of the Notre Dame USC game at the Bush Push. And so I was all set to go out to that Notre Dame game with you guys, and then torrential downpour Thursday and Friday in Connecticut. They couldn't bring the portable lights out onto the field, and so we had to move the game to Saturday. I missed that game and thought, you know what? I've been to plenty of Notre Dame games before. I'll be plenty of more Notre Dame games. At that point, I'm starting to get recruited by them. Things are looking like they might go pretty well. And then we get what might be the most important college football game of the 21st century that happens in that time period.
You hate to see
I'm
it.
not bitter.
Yeah.
I'm
You
not bitter at all. Why do
Yeah.
you ask?
But how
That
you
was a-
handle Notre Dame games, it wouldn't have been pretty if you were in the stands for that.
Oh, we had a buddy of ours who was on the JV team at the time that went out there and said when that touchdown got scored and the ball went out of bounds, remember, at the 5-yard line. Matt
Right.
Leinart fumbled out of bounds,
Right.
and everyone thought the game was over. They had to pull people off the field. And they said when they lined them back up and we had that push moment, you could hear a pin drop in
Yeah.
that stadium.
Yeah.
It was so eerily silent. Real ones remember it was really Dwayne Jarrett's 4th and 8 catch. That was the culprit of that game.
That was a play before they cheated and did the push.
Just because the Water Boy's a cheetah. No, congratulations to that Hall of Fame class. Incredible group of deserving entrants, both as players and as
Absolutely.
coaches. Let's get to a little beef before we finish this off in the NFL. We've talked about in Hard Knocks. Aaron Rodgers, there was a clip from the most recent Hard Knocks of Aaron Rodgers going back and forth with Giants defensive lineman Jihad Ward, who got ticked off. And Aaron Rodgers hit him with one of those lines that's tough to come back from. He pushed him at the end of the play. Aaron scores a touchdown later and chirps him because I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, to which Ward responds, I think he got caught off guard there and said, well, I don't know who you are either.
Yeah, it's like, okay, nobody's buying that one.
Have a safe flight.
Yeah.
You
Nice
too.
try. Yeah, you
God.
too. And then it got worse because then Jihad Ward was saying that, that Randall Cobb and Aaron Rodgers were laughing about Bobby McCain's injury, which was kind of a crazy reach there.
Randall Cobb had here's the quote from Ward.
Yep.
It said Randall Cobb had an illegal block that ended up, having the receiver.
Concussing Bobby McCain.
Bobby McCain had to go in the concussion protocol.
And Aaron Rodgers was critical of Randall Cobb after the game.
For that
He
block.
Said,
That was caught on camera,
He said
yeah.
that hit would have been legal back in the day, but you're a veteran player. Why were you doing that?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So Ward thought that Cobb and Aaron Rodgers were laughing in the huddle at the injury to his teammate. So he said, I was going to stand up for my teammate, to which Aaron Rodgers was like, he's making some of this BS up because we wouldn't be laughing about that. And I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb the benefit of the doubt to say they're not going to be in a huddle laughing about somebody
About an
getting
injury,
hurt.
yeah. I mean, that was definitely a reach, we'll say. And then Jihad Ward trying to bring it out and being like, we'll see them in week 8. Like, let's go. We're going to come out.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, number one. But the other thing I'll say is if Ward truly felt they were laughing at his teammate, then I don't mind him, but 5 seconds after a play, a light push isn't really sending a message that I'm mad at you for laughing at my teammate.
Well, I was going to say, you came from a defense that might have handled things a bit
little differently,
back in the day. So your love language isn't necessarily that, but they also weren't finding guys for merely breathing on the quarterback like they do now. So Ward trying to protect his pockets while also trying to have his teammates back. And that's something I won't begrudge him, right?
That's exactly right.
He saw it happening one way like that. He responded because he thought they were slighting his teammate, making light of a situation that ticked him off. I got no problem with that, but I'm with you. Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb have been around way too long. They have played way too much high-level football, and I think have enough respect for what it means to be a part of this league where I don't think they'd be openly mocking a hurt.
But going back to the line, I don't even know who you are.
That's tough, man.
How do you, it's like I was a horrible trash talker. When somebody hit me with a real good line, I would be like, F you. That would be my comeback.
That's a death blow. You can't come back from that.
That's it.
I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, it's exactly right. How do you, but to say I don't even know who you are, it's like, come on, dude.
It really gave me shades of Avengers Endgame there. Aaron Rodgers is Thanos. I don't even know who you are. And then he found out the hard way. So maybe that is a thing that bodes well for the Giants coming up later on. But coming up next, we've talked about some old timers. We got a comeback in the works here. Ken Griffey is back. Sort of. We'll explain next. All right, let's finish up the week here on GoJo and Golic with this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off on into the weekend. College football, all back in our lives. Don't move. Order snacks to the house.
Oh, my
Be just a
gosh.
feral creature.
Or eat the leftover donuts Jesse brought in.
Yeah, we're going to be, please bring donuts home, bring them,
Yeah. Got a lot of donuts.
send them somewhere.
Lot of donuts.
We have too many left
A
over.
lot of donuts.
Yep, exactly. We have, there's no such thing as too many, but
Well,
we have
that's
as close
true.
to that
Yeah.
as humanly possible. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us that 5-star rating. You can check us out, again, every week from now on, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, live on DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, and DraftKingsNetwork.com. And I'm sure we are just getting started with all the places you're going to be able to see and hear us. And while you're doing that, you can also support the people that support us. Our friends at Knockaround Sunglasses want to make sure that this weekend when you're out tailgating, enjoying college football or some late season baseball, that you look good and are protected from the sun with a great pair of shades. Knockaround is the go-to for quality polarized sunglasses that aren't going to break the bank. They've got the first 9 teams of their MLB package out here now. Teams like the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Mariners, the Astros. So don't be the person squinting into the sun, worried about getting sand in your overpriced sunglasses. Head to knockaround.com and get great-looking polarized shades starting at just $28 and use code GOLIC for free shipping on your order. Dad, Jesse, let's get to this, that, and the third. We love a good bit of pettiness.
Don't we all?
There's a lot of bad feelings in Wisconsin about Aaron Rodgers, who we just talked about in that last segment. One pub is putting it on wax. Jack's American Pub in Milwaukee is set to offer free drinks anytime the New York Jets lose this upcoming football season. Now, like anything else, you got to kind of read the fine print on this. Tabs have to be open 15 minutes before kickoff. The promotion does not include food. The offer only applies if Rodgers is starting and if the Jets game does not coincide with the Packers game, which makes sense as it would be very busy time in that Wisconsin bar. So, as always, you got to read the fine print. But in general, I appreciate the sentiment.
I always love a good promo. I think that's phenomenal. Are you kidding me?
Listen.
It's a great promo, and understandably, Jesse, they're upset. Their longtime relationship, and now they see Aaron having a great time with his new girlfriend. They're like, okay, this ain't right. So let's figure out a way. We're mad about it, but let's figure out a way, to make a good promo to get more people in drinking.
And if you go through that fine print, the overlap scheduled to occur 4 times this season. So 4 opportunities for fans to get out there and get some free
And you
drinks.
know what nobody ever does?
What?
Read fine print.
Right.
Who has ever read the fine print?
Oh, yeah. People are going to be showing up. It's going to be so annoying
And then they're
for the
thinking they're going to get
bartenders.
everything taken care of, and they're going to say, no. It's like Willy Wonka. Read the fine print, right? You get nothing.
You lose, sir. Good day, sir. He killed a lot of people in that movie.
Yeah, it's a really dark
about
it. It really is.
It's a movie about murdering children.
It's a movie about killing
We're
children.
supposed to be laughing and loving, and I started ripping Rudolph later on. I mean, how mean the dad was, the coach was, Santa.
Open your third eye.
seriously.
That's why we are so traumatized as a generation, the millennials.
Talk about it.
Yeah, a lot of our children's stuff that we grew up on had very dark undertones.
We're going to be breaking all that down.
Can't transfer generational wealth because home ownership is so difficult to come by now, and we're all dealing with generational movie trauma.
Yep, generational movie trauma.
Man, it is difficult. By the way, favorite promotion, anytime you have a 2 for blank deal on Powerades at the gas station, I could be getting ripped off. I have no idea if I'm actually getting a deal.
But you're getting
the minute I see 2 for X dollar amount for Powerades, I always buy 2. Every time. Powerade, Gatorade, because all you can be a sponsor. Anytime you got a 2 for deal on
I'm a BOGO guy.
Yeah,
Buy one, get one.
100%.
Yeah, I'm a BOGO guy.
Buy one, get one free.
Yeah.
There's no better deal than that.
Nope.
Well, someone who is never doing anything for free is Ken Griffey, who is still getting handsome paydays from his playing career, but also has found his way back to the diamond in a very interesting way.
Yeah, so he was spotted working as a photographer Wednesday night, snapping pics actually for an MLS match between Inter Miami and Nashville SC. This is hysterical because it comes after a lot of stories about how Randy Johnson also on the sidelines taking pics. And look at everyone in the crowd is like, oh, you're here taking photographs? My man, a legend, Ken Griffey Jr. Obviously, he does this because it's his passion because, like you said, it's not financially motivated. I mean, he is still earning a salary from the Reds.
That is amazing. I love the fact he has the fluorescent media vest.
He has
on.
to.
I know.
He's a paid photographer.
That is
he's a credentialed member of the press.
Yeah.
I mean, at any point in any baseball place, should Ken Griffey Jr. need to wear or have any type of credential?
That was an MLS match.
Oh,
MLS.
I'm sorry.
That was an Inter Miami match.
Yep.
But imagine, like, contextually, because you're right. If you're at a baseball game, Ken Griffey Jr. and seeing him might not be something you're shocked by. Seeing Randy Johnson. I mean, seeing Randy Johnson, you're always going to recognize him because he's gigantic.
Well, that's exactly right. And you're always going to relive the day he threw the ball and killed the bird.
Never forget.
One time. But to have him have the vest on with the NFL logo on it.
Bird murder. Birder.
Birder?
Bird murder.
Bird murderer.
Birder.
A birder.
Okay.
Yep.
But it is. What's with the photography? I mean, Randy Johnson is like serious into it.
And you know what? Like, I've seen some of the stories done on Randy Johnson. Take some good pictures. We need to see if Ken Griffey's actually good at this.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing. Because we just assume, they were really good at this one thing, but we know it doesn't automatically make you viable in your next career. I mean, Elon Musk made great robot cars and has a very terrible app now. So one does not necessarily beget the other. I just want to see if he's actually snapping his pics.
Is every picture a picture of Messi?
Probably.
That is also a smart move right there.
Right?
Ride the Messi train.
Also, I gotta say, because you just brought up the Randy Johnson bird murder thing, he has an official photography website because he does this, for work now.
Is it called Birder?
And, no, the logo's a dead bird.
No.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's an upside down bird and it's dead.
I wonder if he's got a photo series of just dead birds.
Dead birds, yeah. Probably.
That's a little dark.
That video still just blows me away every time I see it. Of the perfect time.
We had that one guy do it recently, warming up in the bullpen.
We had someone do that. We had a ball hit that hit a bird as well. So the bird's got to learn. I mean, seriously, you got to learn.
What are you doing out there, man?
So now you're going to blame the bird?
Yes.
Victor,
you got to see what's going on.
Like a lightning strike.
Listen, when Randy Johnson hit that bird, do you think there are other birds around the stadium? Do you think they saw that and said, you know what we need to do? Stay the hell away from that area.
I think you're ascribing an awful lot of thought to an animal that probably doesn't have as much. And plus, we popped that stadium in the middle of their hood, right? Like, this is area that used to belong to the birds.
Well, it's just like when the animal gets killed crossing the street. And the other
You blame the animal?
No, I'm saying if you're another animal and you look on the road and see your buddy laying there flat, you know what I'm not doing? Crossing that street.
I don't know if they have deductive reasoning like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them the benefit
at the beginning
of
of
the doubt.
Bambi?
I will say I am on that subject, the person who would swerve my car into a tree to avoid anything in the road.
Me and your mother were driving down a road in South Bend, and we saw two animals getting close to the road. Your mother made me pull over.
Yeah.
She got out of the car and chased them back.
Yes.
So they would. She goes, I could not live with myself. I drove back later, and they're laying in the
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Apparently, you went back later without her and did those animals live. That's
not nice.
By the way, there's Randy Johnson.
That's
There's
unbelievable.
the Randy Johnson photography.
That is
dead bird
amazing.
Logo. Yep.
Well,
I mean, wow.
Guys, both of them have a lot of money. Someone playing in the World Series of Poker might also have a lot of money. Let's get to the third here, as we got the World Series of Poker getting ready to kick off the championship in Las Vegas with the largest prize pool in poker history announced at $40 million.
The record the year before was $15 million. It went from $15 million, of which the winner got $12 million, to $40 million. We keep talking about the sports that are flush. Poker is flush.
Inflation, man.
Right now.
Yeah,
Inflation
it's for us all, you know. That $40 million really doesn't go as long as you think it does anymore.
Yeah.
Taxes.
I so much wish I was good at poker. Our agent, Lou Oppenheim, his wife, Fern, is an incredible poker player.
Cutthroat.
I want to play poker. I mean, I know the hands. I just don't know the skill of when to bet, how to bet.
Oh, yeah, reading people, like pseudo-counting cards at the table.
I want to do it so bad. And a lot of times when you go, they don't let you stand there and watch, because I'd like to watch and learn. But man, $40 million purse to play some cards. It's a beautiful thing.
I'd be terrible. I have no poker face. You guys remember when I would try and lie to you guys as a kid? I just didn't have it in me.
Mike would get a pair of kings. He'd look at, everybody, I'm out.
Man, one of those.
Yeah, I get excited.
You were a bad liar as a kid.
I barely ever
That's good, though. That means being a bad liar is good.
We had to hold our face all the time until he'd tell a story. We knew he'd lie, walk away, and then just start laughing.
He'd probably turn around and turn himself in.
Yeah.
I was like like you, Jesse. I got a red card at school. I got in trouble. I came out. I told them I had 1 yellow card. Then 15 minutes later, I came back. I actually got 2, and it counted as a red. And finally, I got a straight red card. I had to go to detention. I'm so sorry. We're so sorry about how this show ended. Still download, subscribe, rate, review. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys Monday.